your little
Yeah.
buttons
please,
up.
Please go on Twitter and everything and
Yep, and
Facebook and share it.
Share it. Boop, 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 boom.
Boop, 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 boop.
I know Amy doesn't always do it, so I don't feel.
No, she's a liar.
I don't feel the pressure.
Hold on, I'm going
All
to do it. Well, is it going? Oh, okay, hold on.
I
Somebody's got
started
to do
watching
it.
on YouTube because you can still look at your phone at the same time.
Yeah.
It's a very nice feature.
Yep.
What is it?
If you watch on YouTube, you can still check email and text message
Oh, yeah.
on your phone. You can't do that on Facebook Live anymore.
No. It's part of the meta experience.
Okay, it's not live yet, Gabe?
No, Facebook going live right now.
Okay. I'm actually going to save it. I'm going to do it this time.
Great.
I do it most times now.
All right. I've posted it to Twitter.
Yep, Facebook is now live. I'm just connecting the chat.
Oh, there we are. Share.
Do you need a pillow?
No, I'm good. I'm good. I should spank Anoka County for making me stay up so late.
Starting the commercial if you guys are ready.
Sure did. And I even tagged you guys.
Oh, great.
Support for Wrong About Everything comes from Minnesota's credit unions. Credit unions are locally based, member-owned financial cooperatives that return earnings to members through higher savings rates, lower loan rates, and reduced fees. Visit mncun.org for more information.
Hey, everybody, welcome to another episode of the Wrong About Everything podcast. I am GOP strategist and knew this was going to happen the whole time, Brian McDaniel.
I am former Republican Senate Majority Leader, and I actually knew this was going to happen the whole time, Amy Koch.
Liar.
I'm Rochelle Westland, health policy advocate, and almost regretting being here.
Not yet.
And I am Allison Nessie, lobbyist, and currently will be measuring my head size for my new bonnet.
And we are
Wrong about
everything.
everything. There's enough ladies in here to practically be right about everything.
There's enough white women in here.
To be certain about everything.
we all know, hey, white women, none of this is your fault. So good
That's
for
right.
that. Well, we are in the Minnesota Credit Union Network studios, deep within the recesses of MBC Studios here in Northeast Minneapolis. We are very happy to have Rochelle and Allison with us. You guys have both been on the program many times, but in case we have new listeners, because why not? Why don't you remind
it's a
everybody?
big shoe.
Yeah, really big shoe. Why don't you remind everybody who you are?
It is a big show today. My name is Rochelle Westland, and I am a
said that
health
part.
policy advocate. I
Said
work
that
for
part
the.
too.
Hey, it's part of the shtick, Brian.
All right.
I work for the Association of Community Health Centers, which represent clinics providing primary care and behavioral, mental health, and dental.
And I am Allison Nessie, a contract lobbyist at soon-to-be Momentum Advocacy with these two yahoos. But I am a Democratic lobbyist on the team, and I focus mostly in housing and homelessness and other fun things that arise. But
You are expert in so many areas.
Yes.
And you are,
Yes.
yeah. We have experts.
Yes, in addition to Ro and Allie, we have our very talented and funny producer, Gabe Noah, pushing the buttons in the other room. We hope that you are watching us on YouTube because Gabe spends a lot of time making clips and posting this stuff to YouTube, and we would really like more traffic there. That is the wave of the future. That's what the kids say. So please watch us on YouTube or check out our website, wrongaboutEverything-podcast.com. And, before we kind of get into it, obviously this is the first podcast after we taped this on Wednesday. So the big election was last night. We taped this in Minnesota. So not only were there significant and interesting and impactful things that happened on the federal level, but oh boy, the circus has come to town here in Minnesota, and we're going to talk about that. We realize that elections have consequences, and they have very real consequences for certain people and certain groups of people. And the election went super late last night. Anoka County, you son of a county, you did not get their results in a timely fashion. So I stayed up till 3:30 without getting all of the results I wanted. So
Because I woke back up, and I think I sent it to the team at like 4.
Something like that. I got up again at 6. But so anyway, what I'm trying to explain is that we know that there are lots of people that probably are very disturbed and upset and unhappy with how things went, and nothing about our tone should be taken as flippant or dismissive. But I am so tired that I'm sorry, I'm just a little punchy. So I just wanted to get that out there.
And we know we have listeners that are very excited.
Yeah,
about what went
absolutely.
down, right? And so we're going to try to break it down as we see it, what happened, why it happened. Commentary, you can get into the comments. Be kind and be gentle and be respectful, because I even thought in his acceptance speech, or in his victory speech, former President Trump was very listen, I want to represent everyone. I want to work together. I want to do what's good for the country. Yes, we remember.
Yeah.
We remember.
He says the best thing about him is he says lots of things. He says all of the things.
He does say all the
Today he's going to say, we have the most safe, secure elections in the world. I never doubted it for a second. And wow, that actually turned out to be a pretty decent Trump right there.
It really did. I don't think I've ever heard your
No, I've been practicing a little bit. It's the best. It's the best elections in the world.
Yeah.
Infallible. Way to go. Way to go, Philadelphia.
Who would say otherwise?
Who would say otherwise?
Yeah.
Well, anyway, in any event, we want to make sure that we're thanking our sponsors. Like I said, we're the Minnesota Credit Union Network.
Love 'em.
And then also our good friends at Bradshaw and Bryant.
Love 'em.
Their entire team of attorneys and staff is dedicated to providing the legal advice you need, combined with the service and personal attention you deserve. If you have questions about how they can assist you with a personal injury, wrongful death, or criminal defense matter, do not hesitate to contact them. Consultations are free. Please contact them at 800-770-7008 or at minnesotapersonalinjury.com. Now, I am going to probably need their services because in the
Did you get it?
No, but
Did you rob something?
Yeah, soon.
Oh.
In the spirit of the cat burglar, Senator Nicole Mitchell.
Yeah.
I am going to drive around rich neighborhoods and look for houses with Trump signs. And then I'm going to go up to the garage. I'm going to type in 4547.
And just make a haul.
I promise you, every Trumper has made 4547
There you go.
for 45th president and 47th president.
You know what? I'm sad you announced this.
I
And you know
know.
why? Not because it's bad. Because it's brilliant.
It's brilliant, but I'm going to go, and I'm just going to go, and you know what? I'm going to steal all their lawnmowers.
Yep, and they do. They have gas powered everything.
I'm
They
not
got toys
going to go in the
toys.
house because they got guns, but you know what? Those eco
4547.
battery mowers that they have, just because why not? Those are probably fetch.
Snowmobiles,
Oh.
4-wheelers, boats,
Yep.
Definitely.
Kayaks.
boats. Why did you tell everybody?
I was gonna say,
I don't know.
Number one's rule of doing scoms is do not to share the scoms.
That's right.
I'm bad at lots of things, like predicting things, but I'm
I
also
was just
bad at robbing things.
I was just wondering what you were going to do with the lawnmower, since I'm pretty sure Jenny does that.
She does.
Well, last time I mowed the
And he
lawn,
likes her to push.
I-
The lawnmower. across the line.
Last time I used a lawnmower, I had a heart attack. So
But
He
didn't
also
you only
has
have to do a
very-
corner?
He was just doing the froggy corner.
The one with frogs.
I was doing the frog corner. You know what? I did as much as I could before my heart gave out. But anyway, so now we have Grover. We have Grover Cleveland, and we have Donald Trump.
Yep.
And these
Two
are the
non-consecutive
two
terms.
non-consecutive terms. Historic in a way. I remember as a kid, I had remember in school, you used to have folders. Well, I had a folder that had all the different presidents, and I can remember just being fascinated. One, that we had a president named Garfield, who, as an adult, has turned into my favorite president of all time. And then that we had Grover Cleveland, which is funny
Twice.
because of Grover, but Grover Cleveland, who was president, then wasn't president, and then was president again.
Yep.
And we have something similar. And if you're under a rock and you don't know, you're not. If you're listening to this podcast, you know what happened. Donald J. Trump was victorious in his re-election bid up against Vice President Harris, and
And not just victorious, like he
well,
ran,
yeah,
he ran away with
and
it.
we're
Let's
getting to
get
that. And I don't think the fact that he won. I mean, I went back and forth that last week, where at times I was guaranteeing myself that he was going to win. At the end, I was kind of swinging back, thinking that he wasn't going to win. But as I was watching, he won Georgia, he won North Carolina. Not that surprising. Then he started doing pretty good in Pennsylvania, and then pretty good in Michigan, and pretty good in Wisconsin. And I kept waiting for certainly Wisconsin and Michigan to turn back, and then Arizona, and then Nevada. So the Donald Trump winning was always plausible, always possible. Donald Trump winning quite handily the popular vote is something that I would not have believed possible.
So right now he's at 295.
Yeah.
There
Electoral
are
votes.
electoral votes. There are 17 outstanding, Arizona and Nevada, that he most certainly will get. He's up in both, and so that's another 17. So he will end up at, what is that,
12?
12?
312.
312. I mean, that's
That's
and winning
decisive.
the popular vote.
Yeah. Yeah.
Decisive. The blue. We're calling this wrong about the blue wall because somebody was saying the last 2 out of 3 presidential cycles, it has not been. A wall keeps things out. A wall protects things. I don't think it's a blue wall.
No,
We're going to build the
Berlin.
wall.
It's a Berlin
Mexico's going to pay for the wall.
Gonna tear down the blue wall.
They're going to paint
Tear
it
down the
blue.
blue wall.
They're going to paint it blue.
It's the only wall that he has been able to successfully construct and build.
That's
and
not true.
tear it down.
I secured funding for the wall, and I built some of it.
Real quick on Trump and Grover Cleveland, though,
Yeah.
the physical similarities between the two of them.
Oh.
Yeah.
Gabe will get that up there.
Yeah. I mean,
So
Grover
they-
Cleveland, big beefy boy. So.
Oh, he was a big beefy
yeah,
boy.
so,
I don't know.
I think
that.
that's about where their similarities end.
Oh,
but,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
I want to
so,
hear. I mean,
sorry.
I want to hear.
Lad- go ahead, ladies.
Let's hear,
Please. and
hear what
then
y'all
I'll-
have to say.
Do you want to go first?
You guys are killing it right now.
I'm sorry.
I mean, I feel like this is how like a
sorry.
lot of people feel today, right? Like you it was early in the night that you kind of felt like you were going to have a 2016 repeat. Didn't take long to figure that out. There was a lot of us that had been talking about it before, from just potentially what could happen. And I mean, I know that as I've been talking to people today, I mean, like you all, I mean, I'm sure what's happening in everybody's everyone's newsfeed or everyone's phone right now is, we're talking about the election, we're talking about what happened. And the truth is there's a lot of people that I talk to that, given the rhetoric that was part of the Trump campaign, that even if there's we want to work together now, there's been an isolation that has been so strong that, there are my friends that are gay, my friends that are immigrants, my friends that are, just women, a lot of them, personally like thinking about IVF and what does that mean for for the future. And so I think that there's a space of just taking a breath and trying to understand what this all means for not just our country, but just for people in their everyday life.
Yeah. And I've shared with everybody here, I all along thought it was Trump's race to lose, frankly, just with the way that the Electoral College map's working with so many U.S. Senate races that there's going to be so much, energy behind the GOP ticket. So I had been preparing for months and months for this to be the outcome. So last night definitely hit differently. I will say over the last week, I definitely had changed my perception, thinking that she was possibly going to pull it off. I even changed my outcome in the office pool yesterday. I was like, I feel good. I'm feeling it. But in my heart of hearts, I really did think that this was going to happen, and I tried to door knock my little butt off, talking to people in purple districts, trying to get out there for Kamala, trying to get out there for House members. But what I was hearing on the doors more than anything was taxes, the economy, inflation, and nothing about the other big wins, both at the federal and the state level. And I shouldn't say nothing, but it was overwhelmingly economic issues that were impacting people's ability to feel secure in their homes and with their kids. And when that is on the ballot, it usually doesn't bode well for Democrats. And it's really frustrating and challenging, but I was not surprised.
Well,
okay, so what I would say is, and I agree, of course, with all of you because you're brilliant. I think what hasn't been addressed and wasn't really being addressed was the weakness of Vice President Harris as a candidate. And I said this in the beginning. Vice President Harris ran for the Democrat primary for president, was one of the first to drop out, just couldn't raise money.
Before Iowa,
Before
right?
Iowa, Amy Klobuchar lasted longer. Pete Buttigieg, all the folks stayed in. One of the first to drop out. And there's a reason, right? I think that she just didn't connect with people. And so I get it. Once Biden had been in there so long, the only option when he dropped out, or when he was talking about, whether you're talking about dropping out, was the vice president, right? You can't go around her. You can't say, okay, never mind. No. So now Democrats are stuck. But what I disagree with, and we said on the podcast last week, Javier said, well, I think it worked out perfectly because that was the way that we could get things done quickly and efficiently without a damaging primary. But I think a primary isn't about damaging. A primary is about vetting people and hardening them for the real campaign and making sure that they're the right person in there. Mm-hmm. And because President Biden refused to step down or wouldn't even entertain it, which he should have done 2 years ago, that the primary never happened. Poor Dean Phillips. Say what you want.
Oh, okay.
And Dean Phillips, his prescription was wrong, but his diagnosis was correct. That we should have a primary. So there's
Dr.
that.
Quinn, medicine woman over here.
Right, but, and also, this campaign was giving 2016. It really was. As soon as I heard, I thought that she jumped the shark when I heard about the Vogue cover article. I'm sorry. I understand that people think it should have been with Brat Summer. But when it was the Vogue cover, I was like, who in Erie, Pennsylvania has got their subscription to Vogue? It just was very out of touch. They took time from the campaign and they did an interview with Vogue and took pictures and spent a day and a half arranging outfits and all of these sort of things to do that. It was those kinds of things that I just...
We can say she was on the cover of Vogue, but we're talking about a man who had gold toilets and lives in Mar-a-Lago. It is... to say... I get where you're saying that she... we can say that she was she was unrelatable to the average, but I don't understand how we can say, oh, well, we're going to come down on Harris because she seemed unrelatable, but...
Yeah,
it's off.
Okay.
I agree, but he's, as a cult of personality, has that. We didn't know Kamala Harris. We all know Trump. It's all baked in. The gold toilets, the weird hair, the ridiculous verbal diarrhea.
I mean, it's surprising that he connects with the Rust Belt, with the Blue Wall.
Shocking.
I mean, as a political person, and I'm finding more and more, and I apologize if this means I shouldn't have a podcast, but more and more I'm just realizing I'm not a regular person on these things. I don't think I connect with these candidates in a way on either side, in a way that kind of lets me understand how real people are perceiving them, and that's something I need to work on because it's part of my job to be better at that. But I think that, and this is what I found with my students, every presidential election, I don't ask them who they're going to vote for. I say, who do you think is going to win? And there is a belief that Trump's assholery is authentic. And with both Secretary Clinton and Vice President Harris, there's something that is missing. And, I'm not going to totally discount, racism and sexism and all that stuff. But I'm also going to say over and over again, it's not Republicans' job to vote for Democrats. So if people weren't voting for her because she's a minority or a woman, that's Democrats not voting for her because of that, because Republicans shouldn't vote for her for policy reasons. Race and gender should have nothing to do with it. Republicans shouldn't vote for her under any circumstances almost.
The huge tax policy that Trump has as part of his platform, I feel like there's nothing in the, I know that Republicans in theory have a history of being good economic stewards, or that's what the basis of the party has been. But I haven't heard, other than the fact that they're going to fix it, I haven't heard a solid economic plan coming out of.
A concept of a plan.
We have a concept of, but that's not a real plan.
It's absolutely not, which, by the way, shout out to Capital friend Cynthia Kelly for being a concept of a costume for Halloween, because that was excellent.
That was a good one.
Yesterday, he did have a concept of a plan, and he had little sound bites that he would throw out there that really resonated with people. There was a gentleman who was on CNN yesterday in Michigan, Western Michigan, which is far more industrial, and he is a shift worker.
Tariffs?
No, it was he was being interviewed. He had never voted for Trump before. The last person he voted for was Obama in 2012. But he had heard that Trump was going to make overtime wages tax exempt. And
yes,
he's like,
I had
that's
somebody
how
else
I
contact me on this.
Yeah, he's like, that's how I make the majority of my money, and my family's really struggling right now. So I'm out here today to vote for Trump for that.
Yep.
And it's
somebody else asked me too. They're going to make my overtime, and he's like, "That's I make $60,000 a year, and I could make up to 70 or 75 if they're not taxing my overtime."
And there's something unfair.
There's a lot of money for him.
For the person or the party in power. That's a lot of alliteration from an anxious attorney. But there's for the people in power, or the party in power, it's unfair that they get held to a level of specificity that I think challengers don't. And Donald Trump is both, but I think that more than an acceptance of Trump and Trump's plan, it was a rejection of the Democrats' message, and frankly, the message was pretty. I mean, other than just a few little things here and there, it was Donald Trump's a convicted felon and abortion. And I think that we're going to look back and we're going to look at the crosstabs of how much better Trump did with black men and Latino men, and to a certain extent, just how the abortion issue with women, you have to be a fool to say it was not a major factor. It's a major factor, but it wasn't as sharp as it was 2 and 4 years ago. And that's the monolithic belief that I think the Democratic Party currently has, that black people should all vote the same way, and Latino people should vote the same way, and all women will vote this way. The facts are going to prove out that that's not true. And when we get to my spank or my thank, it's talking about what happened in Texas with Latino voters, and we're going to find out that these are not monolithic entities, and I think that they're starting to resent being treated like that.
Yeah, I mean, we can't. The downfall of the Democratic Party will be making assumptions about where people are at. based off of their gender or race, but abortion has been a critically lightning rod issue that has driven people out and changed, outcomes in ruby red states. I think there was, looking back though on the last 3 months, because frankly, she had 90 days to put together a presidential campaign. I'm not far enough away from it to give like a diagnosis on weaknesses. Like it's just too soon.
It's okay.
But I do really think we missed the mark on honing in on the rent is too damn high. My Subway footlong sandwich that used to be $5, in fact, has a whole commercial jingle with it. It was $15 last week. That is what is driving people right now, and not focusing on that, I think, was enough, in my opinion. Democracy is incredibly important, but man, do people's ears just turn off because it's just too nebulous, it's too big, it's too complicated. If you can't relate to it on the day-to-day, it's just not compelling.
Well, and
enough.
And Jenny Bierlein, my wife, big Democrat, she was very upset last night. And when we were just talking about it, and it never got weird. But when we were talking about it, she was talking about Kamala, and I just brought up, well, then why did you vote for her to be the nominee? And of course, that's a trap because nobody voted for her. And so, and I'm not saying that this is what you're saying, but she only had 90 or so days to do it. But whose fault is that? That's Biden's fault. It's kind of like the Ruth Bader Ginsburg problem. You waited too long, and then you're upset with the results after that. I mean, Biden, if he was going to be forced out, which he was, no one believes that he chose this. If he was going to be forced out, then it should have been way earlier, and then you could have had, and maybe Kamala would have been the pick, but it could have been Gretchen Whitmer, it could have been, Gavin Newsom, it could have been, Buttigieg, it could have been any number of people who might have done better, because I do think, and this is not because she's a black woman, I do think that there's a charisma factor that is missing there, and it showed itself in 2015 when she, or
20,
16, whatever year that
2020.
is that when she ran for president?
It was 2020.
Yeah.
I just don't think we're gonna get a more charismatic woman at the top of the ticket. Frankly, I loved how she ran this campaign in 90 days. I truly loved it, and it was.
I don't even
refreshing.
know if it's charisma for me. It feels like she just doesn't. I don't know how to say it, but I was like, she just doesn't stick with people.
I mean, clearly the data would support that. It's just not. It was not my experience. It was not the experience of people around me. People were excited about politics finally in my network, in my non-political network. It was exciting. It was relatable. She was a relatable woman who was successful and could articulate issues in digestible ways. I really appreciated what she did.
But did those excited friends of yours not vote? And I'm not saying I'm just asking.
Yeah.
Because
no, they voted, and they're in Minnesota, so.
Well, and I
she
think
won.
that's where you're seeing the divide, right? Like, my friends that are educated women were very excited to see another educated woman on the ballot. I don't think that a lot of people, so I come from a family that is very conservative, very Trumpy. The Trump fights are really real around my family holiday table. Like, I personally understand what it's like to have those divides in families that break. And she could not speak to the working blue collar tradesmen in the same way that Trump and Vance don't speak to me. And for whatever we think that she did wrong, or what the Democrats may have done wrong, or what the Republicans did wrong, I think that what we're seeing is a real big cultural divide in how we see the world and how we think that the world is going to be able to come together. And so, for as much as I wasn't sure that this was a great idea to be sitting around this table today, I think that if we don't start actually having some of these conversations about what is real and true and honest and hurtful, that is my biggest fear for how we're going to be able to move forward from this. Because I don't think that calling out Kamala for not being charismatic is really, I don't think that's the solving piece to why she didn't win.
But I think that's politics.
Well, I mean, that's politics.
Right. Well, I'm trying to. What I think is a conversation that's helpful is dissecting, because I think it's so easy for Democrats that are going into a hole today to say, I guess the whole world is racist. I guess the whole world is a misogynist. I guess 312 electoral college states, votes in states just means that everybody's hateful and awful and believes everything that, every like neo-Nazi that has also like been empowered in the last 4, 6, 8 years believes. And that's not it. It is the guy in Michigan who just doesn't want taxes on his overtime. And also, she was hung with owning a bit of this administration, right? Because her close ties. So you've got Israel, Ukraine kind of endlessly, even the bungling in Afghanistan. You've got a stubborn economy that I get that the Democrats want to say, hey, it's getting better because unemployment. It doesn't feel better. I just talked to someone today. She said, I went and got like a little pasta dish for lunch and I drank water and a glass of milk, which I don't know why you drink milk with pasta. But, and he said, $38. $38. And he said, I sat there and I thought, like, what's a single mom supposed to do? Like, how are you supposed to afford groceries at all in this economy? And then she was asked on The View, what would you do different? How do you differ from Biden?
Deer in the
headlights.
headlights.
That is it's political malpractice that wasn't the first question that this campaign formulated a solid answer to. And the solid answer had to be addressing these people that are just feeling like, don't tell me this economy is good. Don't tell me that, I think she eventually kind of mumbled through that she really supports whatever he's doing. It's like, no, talk about, where I have a problem with? This economy. I want to, do better than what we've been doing for Americans' family, for working class people. Like, and she just did, and she just sat there and was like, well, basically, I agree with them. People don't want to hear that you agree with them when they're paying $38 for some pasta and some milk.
And I think that too many times, and this is, I feel like we're spiking footballs. And
I don't mean to be.
It's not my intent. I really just want to talk about this. But I think that too many times, the American people were bringing up issues and they were told that inflation isn't real and it's a rich person's problem, and the border is secure. It's just a racism thing, and that I had a third thing. They were asked not to believe. And that crime statistics are down, and I think that people. Whether you can show me a statistic that tells me that it is or it isn't, that's not what people's individual experiences are. And I think that you can have different ways of attacking a problem for sure. But I think just telling people that either you're making it up or you're ignorant or that you're believing in misinformation, that's not how people feel, and they don't like being told that. And there wasn't anything more than that.
No, it is dismissive, and one of the challenges I have felt.
And there are jerks supporting Trump, by the way. Let's be clear.
There are racist assholes,
right? I don't want to
misogynists,
for sure, and that are feeling empowered right now.
Correct.
Oh, I got the messages.
Yeah.
Right. I saw one of the messages you got, by the way, and it's real Republicans.
Yeah.
No, but we, as Democrats too, we can't just tell people what we want to do. We also have to listen to what they want. And I think sometimes we are not always willing to absorb or take in what we hear people's issues are. We just we have an agenda. But that's politics. That is politics. But we have to be better at listening to what.
Yeah, I think about the taxing overtime thing, and it's funny that you heard it, I heard it. And I didn't even know he'd said it. I knew he'd said not to tax tips, which I thought was brilliant and also I would support. But I didn't know he'd said about overtime. And this person said to me, I was like, well, he says a lot of things. I don't know if he said it.
And I feel like I did it too, because, Trump's shtick does not appeal to me. It doesn't speak to me. It's not interesting to me, and I think that I get dismissive of it in a way that I shouldn't, because obviously enough people are connecting to it in a way that my predictions were much more. Much less for him. And part of that is because I'm being dismissive to the people who are saying that they're positively reacting to some of the things that Trump's doing and saying, I don't understand some of it. And some of that's on me.
Good. And then
Well, I was just thinking, like, here we are sitting here. I feel like a lot of this has been talking about, like, the negative space of Democrats, and I understand that we just lost an election cycle, and that
I'm
is
in a very negative place.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Well, I mean, like, you know, I'm here. You know, I'm here with you. But like, I think the other thing is like, we're about to walk into 4 years of another 4 years of a Trump presidency. We still have a divided nation. I have a 26-year-old sister texting me, what do people who make six figures understand about getting groceries? And I mean, I think that like goes around in politicians way beyond. And for the party that is in control right now, I don't know that there is not a plan. I don't even know that there's a concept of a plan other than a soundbite on what is really going to happen. And in the meantime, all of the things that were being talked about of how to create a safety net and how to make sure that we're making sure that there's services for people and access to education fell away. And I think so, you know, when we're talking about the negativity and we're talking about what people are feeling right now, I think that they're really scared because there isn't a space we don't know the space of moving forward right now. And Brian, Lisa says, just because I'm surprised that she's listening, corporate greed is not inflation.
Well,
the other, and then I was going to say to you said about groceries, and which is also weird that we talk about how he relates to folks.
Yeah.
But he does.
He's never
in a
been
really
grocery
weird,
shopping.
No. So I listened. I had to listen. So I was doing a commentary for London Times Radio on the final night, on Monday night. I'll get to that. But anyway, as a part of it, they wanted me to comment on his final closing speech in Grand Rapids, Michigan, which went incredibly late. He did not start till 11 o'clock, and he went on for over 2 hours. And I had to try to stay up and also sort of be alert because they kept saying, well, as soon as he finishes, we're going to go live. So I had 2 hours of like high alert listening to Trump. And so it was like I was back at his rally. I've been to a few of them. And at one point, he even said like something like, he goes, you know, somebody going to get groceries. He was trying to be relatable. And he goes, isn't that a funny old-fashioned term, getting groceries? Who says getting groceries anymore? And I was like, what are you talking about? Like the whole world talks about getting groceries. And I just thought, who is listening to this and going, he's a down.
That's it.
He's our guy.
He's our guy.
And again,
he gets me.
Our working man.
but it wasn't
Talking
just.
about an old-fashioned term.
But it
for
wasn't just
groceries.
him.
Old-timey.
Wasn't just him. Look at what happened across the country.
Right, let's read that. So the U.S. Senate.
The U.S. Senate flipped.
Yeah.
So even if Kamala would have won, you know, as much we talk very much about the importance of judges. If Kamala would have won, she would not have been able to get through, her judicial appointments, because it's the U.S. Senate that gets to confirm.
The House is right now undecided. I'll just say this for folks: the latest update: 180. We're recording on a Wednesday afternoon. 186 Democrats, 204 Republicans, with 45 races not called. 218 is the magic number. So my folks that I spoke to in DC said they believe the Republicans will now hold the House, which makes sense given the wave that we saw. But that'll be very close, like maybe even like 222. So not a mandate, not an overwhelming win in the House, but only 4 votes then, right?
Have fun governing in your trifecta.
Yeah.
Can't wait.
Right, you guys know.
Yeah. Well, and now let's turn the spotlight on the Republican Party and Trump. What I will say, closed circuit to my friends in the party, let's not be what they say we are. Let's develop plans. Let's try to do things that actually address the issues that we brought up, the shortcomings that we said that Biden and Harris came up with. We have not even mentioned Tim Walz and how
Sitting in Minnesota there.
Professionally, I won't be doing that.
Yes, but I mean,
I'm kidding.
History will look back and. Certainly, this didn't happen because of something he did, but they certainly will question whether he was the right pick. Now, I don't know whether that turns Pennsylvania and the other, if it would have been Shapiro or whatever, we'll never know. But ultimately, what we do know is he didn't help. And really, I think that he didn't even win Blue Earth County in Minnesota. He
did not win his own county,
which is something. But that's probably a longer discussion for a different day that I'm sure we'll get into on this. But Republican Party, let's be good. let's be better, let's govern, and let's show people that if you trust Republicans to govern, it's not just going to be all social issues and insults all the time. Let's govern, let's talk about the economy. When the Republicans talk about the economy, they win. When we do things about the economy, we win. When we're messing around with people in their bedrooms and in their houses, it does not play well. So let's stop it.
Let's talk about issues that people care about, like right? It's like inflation. Let's talk about affordability. Let's talk
Moodang.
about independent job. Moodang. Moodang. Bring her here to the United States.
But
also part of the immigration policy.
Right.
New immigration policy.
I mean, but let's talk about childcare, right? It's become completely unaffordable. Let's talk about college. Let's talk about student loans. Let's stop being the party of this is just unacceptable and start fixing some of the things that real Americans are facing. Because, by the way, it's been 3 cycles since 2016 when we were winning anything. So to think that it can't flip right back around, it can.
This did feel, and we're going to shift to Minnesota here now, but this did feel like 2016. I think that in 2016 we were surprised. We're surprised not just that Trump won, but that the coattails that Trump had. And then now it's 2024, and I won't speak for you guys. 2016 won't happen again because we all were there and we're going to see it and people are going to act differently. And it doesn't seem like we did. And now, once again, we are surprised that Trump won and we are surprised at the coattails that Trump had. We didn't learn our lesson. And by whoever we is, I don't know who that is. The American people, the Democratic Party, they did not learn their lesson on that and repeated it. And the last time, and I think I stole this from somebody, so I apologize for not being able to say who sold it. But last time, Trump won the Electoral College. Mm-hmm. This time, he won the Electoral College and the popular vote. And this might have been a podcast that you were listening to in my office, Allison.
Probably.
But the guy said this was a choice. This was not a gimmick of the Constitution.
Yeah.
This was a choice, and I think that choice needs to be, I'm going to say respected, not that because people have to agree with it, but respected in that this was a win, and a win that you can't take away from Trump either by any of the means that 2016 was trying to be taken away from him.
I think his point, too, was... It was a TikTok video, which also didn't exist in 2016.
Yeah.
But it provides. It was an excellent kind of summary of how he was feeling today. He's a black man, and he was just like, I'm not surprised. I'm disappointed, but it's providing clarity because it was a choice. It was an overwhelming majority of people that made a specific choice. And while that's daunting and terrifying, considering everything that has come out of that man's mouth, it at least provides clarity on where people stand. And you can organize better when you are clear on what you are up against, I would say. But it is incredibly, for me, a bit heartbreaking that is the choice that people intentionally made, because I find what he does stand for quite abhorrent.
Well, and he was elected. This was democracy. I mean, this was not a gimmick. No. I mean, you might say, oh, he's an authoritarian. He's this or that. Mm-hmm. Well, you know what? He was democratically elected by a majority of people in the United States of America. And if you would have told me that Trump was going to win a second term, I wouldn't have been shocked. If you told me that he got a second term by winning the popular vote, I would have been shocked. And this is my shocked face. For those of you listening,
still didn't get Minnesota though.
Just on podcast, that I gave a shock face.
So we should move it back to Minnesota.
Move it back to Minnesota
is what Gwen says to Tim. No,
no!
I'm sorry. I just had to. It's one. Oh, I thought. So obviously Tim and Gwen will be coming back here, and he's got 2 more years left on his term.
Yeah.
I was thinking about what a rush this has been for them for the last 3 months. Yeah. I thought about that when they got in. I thought, oh my gosh, they're going from Minnesota to governor, which is not a small position, right? But then the first time I saw him on the stage, I thought, what must that feel like to have just millions of people aware of you all of a sudden out in the middle? And now I think about what it had to feel like, that rush. You were everywhere, and in just that very short time, 3 months, and now back to where you were. And what a shock to the system that's going to be.
You went from being the guy in the Star Tribune to the guy on Saturday Night Live,
Yes.
being played by actors that everybody knows their name,
Jim Gaffigan.
and played well by Jim Gaffigan.
Excellent.
Right, and then like 3 months of that intensity, and then just now back to Minnesota.
And now back to the residents without a secret security detail. But
Right.
yeah. No. It's.
That just like taking all the politics out of it and putting just the human face for that family, what it must be like is unbelievable. No. Brave Workshop, maybe we'll do a character with Tim Walz, but that's like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just a different level.
Yeah.
Well, and a bunch of chowderheads are gonna. Some people, I'm sure, are gonna say that it's not Harris's fault. It was Walz's fault. He didn't do this or that. Tim Walz might not have helped enough, but he did not hurt.
Yeah, I had a reporter call me today and kind of really pushing a lot of questions about like, what do you think about this and what about in these? And I was like, come on.
I don't.
Tim
think-
Walz is not the reason.
But
that this
Harris only
campaign-
winning Minnesota by 3 or 4.
a little bit of a shock.
That's surprisingly low.
But there was so much more involved in this campaign.
It was still more than Hillary. I will say that.
Yeah.
It did, but Hillary didn't have the governor of Minnesota on the ticket with her.
What was it today that's that 2016 and 2024 tells us that people just not ready for Tim and the vice presidential?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. We are just. You
So
know.
Tim
Not ready
Kaine,
for a
Tim
Tim.
Kaine,
Nothing to do with the women at the top of the ticket and
we're
internalized
not ready for
misogyny.
Tim as a vice president.
It's a white man named Tim.
Tim Kaine, who was Hillary Clinton's running mate, which I had forgotten. He won his race last night, and I was
Virginia for
like, oh yeah,
Yeah.
that guy was a thing.
He had
and
an
I think
excellent sketch on SNL this weekend.
I actually didn't watch
Oh.
this week.
It was funny.
But I think that the Walz pick, much like the Tim Kaine pick, ended up being kind of uninspired. Though I think Tim Walz has a lot more personality than Tim Kaine, and I think it would have been similar. Let's stick with Tim's. I think it would have been similar if McCain would have picked Tim Pawlenty as opposed to Sarah Palin.
Is it Tim's?
It's Tim's, but Tim Pawlenty, who's my buddy and my pal and was on the podcast not that long ago. He also, I just don't think would have given McCain the spark that Palin did.
We should have
before things went
Governor
horribly wrong.
Plenty back on because we talked to him about sort of like the rush of
Yeah.
being picked
Yeah.
and that spotlight. We should have
Yeah.
him back on to say, and then what's it like to come back to Egan? Like, I'm curious. I'm just curious about that. Like,
We have a Taco John's now.
oh well,
That's where the Dairy Queen used
But
to
was
be.
it there in 2012?
No, it was a
No.
Dairy Queen.
Yeah, no, it's a small club of people that have experienced
Right.
something like that, and particularly just the 90-day window too. There's really
that's-
been nothing like this recently, where you're not preparing for a year and then
Right.
emotionally, mentally preparing, and just
Yeah, or
totally
even like a
thrust.
strategy where you're like, well, maybe I'll run in 2016 and I'll get my name out there, and then I'll run again in 2020 and become a vice presidential. Like, some people strategize like that. Not in this case. It was just like, here you go.
Okay, prediction segment. Rochelle, does Tim Walz run for a 3rd term as
here we go.
governor?
Oh, good question. I mean, he could. He could.
Well, yes,
right.
constitutionally he can. Yes. You are correct in that.
Constitutionally, can three are allowed. It's never been done. Three consecutive terms.
I'm going to say yes.
You think he is going to run? Allison.
Yes, if nothing else at the national level opens up. I can see,
Ah.
I say no. I say he does not run.
I say yes, he does.
Okay. Well, we'll see.
I think 2 years is a long time, and I think
he's going to get pressure to have it be either Lieutenant Governor Flanagan or somebody else who's a woman or a person of color. I think he's going to get pressure to do that, and I think that I don't know this. I think that the First Lady of Minnesota wants him to do something that
what
is
about
more
the
lucrative.
impact of what happened? I love this segue. What about the impact of what's happened at the legislature now for
Okay.
Tim Walz on this decision? Because there was a move, not a tremendous move, like a tiny shift, but a pretty impactful shift. So we had the trifecta with Governor Walz, the Minnesota Senate, and the Minnesota House being all DFL. That's been for 2 years. What happened last night was, of course, Governor Walz will be coming back as governor, and he's got 2 years left in his term. The Minnesota Senate did not flip. There was one seat up. They're usually up every 4 years together. That's 2026. But because Kelly Morrison, who was victorious and won the Dean Phillips seat, she had stepped down, so the Senate was 33-33 with a one seat. Kathleen Falk was running against Ann Johnson Stewart. Ann Johnson Stewart had a victory, a fairly not a runaway victory, but I think it was 4 points, 5 points.
Yeah, no, it was that was the fun election night party I was at last night.
Okay.
That was before
so,
the
a hold for the Minnesota Senate. But as always, the Minnesota Senate has been very slim margin. It's one vote. It was, and also you have the whole cat burglar situation in Woodbury. But the Minnesota Senate doesn't change.
Cat burglar.
Senator cat burglar. And then over in the House, though, a 4-seat was needed to win. 3, the Republicans picked up 3, which we talked about as a very real possibility. That would mean, and there are 2 recounts, by the way, one in St. Cloud, Representative Dan Wolgamott,
Friend of the program.
friend of the program, was 24 votes. I don't want to short his victory here, or potential
our notes.
victory.
We have our notes.
And then Representative Brad Tapke, friend of the program, in Shakopee. So, and actually, even the announced on the Secretary of State's website was that their opponents, Sue Eck in
28
St. Cloud,
votes.
28 votes for Representative Wolgamott,
Yep.
and then 13, I believe, for Representative Tapke.
Tapke, also a
Okay.
friend of the program.
Which automatically triggers a recount. Or it doesn't auto. You have to ask for the recount, but it's paid for by the taxpayers because it's less than half of 1%. So those 2 seats in a recount could flip. So we are not calling the Minnesota House done deal, but at current situation, if those 2, 28 and 13 hold, there will be a dead tie, 67-67. That is the best case scenario for the Minnesota DFL in the House, because if they flip, they become Republican, which means the Republicans would actively take one or more flipped. Then you're talking 68-60 or 68-66 or 69-65. I'm bad at doing math.
Yep.
Yep.
69-65.
And so, anyway, then the majority would be clearly the House.
Well, if you have a 67-67 tie, who gets to pick the Speaker of the House?
Well, that's a great question. Who knows here? Raise your hand.
I brought a
know.
book.
I do.
Excellent. What have you got there, Allison? Because we're going to go to you for the answer.
Oh, thank you. There isn't an outline for it. Unlike
What?
I know, and so the last time this happened was in 1978 election, so 1979 legislative session where the House was 67-67, and there's an excellent book that former Speaker Margaret Anderson Kelleher recommended to me called Minnesota Standoff: The Politics of Deadlock. She told me a couple years ago to get it. I bought it off Amazon, didn't read it, started reading it today, but that is the last and the only time that it has happened in Minnesota legislative history. And the Republicans and the Democrats came to an agreement. The Republican would be Speaker.
Right. Constitutionally, there
yeah.
cannot be co-speakers.
Yeah, there
Nope,
can't be 2
nope.
speakers.
Constitution. They thought about that, but the
Though
Constitution doesn't
I
allow
saw,
it.
I
Yeah.
mean, I clicked on the link where it says the Constitution says you can't do it. I read it. I couldn't. I didn't.
But you're a terrible lawyer.
I'm a bad lawyer. But nothing.
Was
in
there
it.
case law?
Oh, maybe.
Anyway, they determined that constitutionally it was not required.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there isn't a process. There isn't a
there's not
president.
possible.
There's not a tiebreaker. The lieutenant governor, unlike the vice president, does not come to the body that has the tie and cast a vote. So it is up to the 2 caucuses if it stays this way, which I think it probably will, because while those are very tight, that is still a lot of votes to.
Yeah,
to flip.
as someone who has done attorney work on many recounts, there's not hundreds of votes that get
Yeah.
found.
Yes. So anticipating 67-67, it will be the caucuses will need to elect their leaders. How it worked in 1978 or 9 was
And the caucuses are meeting tomorrow to
Tomorrow,
elect their
yep.
leaders. And
Yep.
normally, the leader of the majority would be the presumed speaker.
But there
That's
isn't.
not going to happen.
But that doesn't have to happen. And what they did previously is elected like 5 caucus leaders, and then did kind of a conference committee negotiation about how the House would be structured. So the Republicans then took the speaker, and then the Democrats were key committee chairs, taxes, Ways and Means, and I believe capital investment.
Rules, I think it was.
Oh, rules.
Yep.
Okay, that makes sense. So there's going to have to be a power sharing dynamic, but we all know how this 2024 session ended. It was not exactly great for party relations. So it will be incredibly interesting to see how the next few weeks are navigated and what decisions are made.
Because in 78, 79, there was a lot more of a spirit of collegiality. The bills that were passed then were very bipartisan. Republicans would vote for them, Democrats would vote for them. And so it wasn't as cuckoo bananas to have, a DFL committee chair put together a bill that some Republicans were going to vote for. Now, the bills are largely put together by leadership, and the majority party votes for them, the minority party votes against them. So if, as part of a power sharing agreement, all of a sudden you have, a public safety bill put together by Democrats and a tax bill put together by Republicans, I have every hope as a citizen and a lobbyist that they can put together bills that can pass. I am not a naive person and will be very surprised if that happens not during special session.
Leader Damath 2 hours ago spoke to the press at Tori Van Ood had that she'd said, I'm not that she was happy with the result, despite potentially not getting the majority, and that she thinks that this is an opportunity to work together. So I think that's great. I do think Minnesotans voted for balance and cooperation. And Speaker Hortman had similar comments. I also was on NPR with Majority Leader Erin Murphy, or presumed Majority Leader. She is the current, and I presume the future, who also spoke about working together. And so while I don't think the House Republicans will sit down until the results of the special is done, I'm sorry, not a special, the recount. According to Steve Simon today on NPR, he said that it'll take about...
That's the Secretary of State.
Secretary of State who runs the elections. He said that a recount will probably take up to 2 weeks in the Tabke seat in Shakopee, and maybe more like 3 or 4 to get done in St. Cloud. I'm not sure why geographically, but that is the deal. So we may not know until the end of the month or into early December the final outcome, and then I would assume that they'll start getting to work. Oh, and my guess is they'll start having some conversation before the recounts are completed. But maybe not. I mean, if you're the House Republicans, you really want to see the outcome because they could shift the majority. So
well, and I think that Leader Damath and Leader Hortman, I think if you put them in a room together, I bet you they could come up with something that might work. But whatever they come up with has to satisfy the most progressive member and the most conservative member, and that, I think, is going to be a very tall order.
Does it? Like, I mean, just as like a thought process, if you I don't know what's going to happen. We do divided politics in this state a lot. We have a history of split ticket voting. We have a history of one body is one thing, another body is another thing. So, I mean, I am going to choose in this moment to have faith and optimism in people being able to work together. But if you say that Representative Damath and Representative Hortman can come together to, satisfy something in the middle, does it become something where that space votes, and how many votes do they need from each party to pass a bill then? Like, there could be some really interesting...
I do think it's an opportunity. And I also think that these two women I've seen them work together. I've seen them be very respectful and thoughtful, and because we've had 2 years, and I think if folks could do it, it's them.
I did have a little PTSD though when you guys mentioned how last session ended. I had put that out of my brain. I remember.
Or 2024, I'm sorry, was a terrible
put it out of my brain
session.
for a second.
And we haven't, yes, the Senate has a 1-seat majority on the DFL, but Senator Mitchell will be required to go to court in the beginning of the legislative session, so she will not be able to be present, and therefore could force a 33-33 situation in the Senate too. So
It's amazing if you think about it. Of 201 legislators, 100 are Republican and 101 are Democrat right now. That's you don't get more. And then we could be down. We could be like that is a equally split. If you think, by the way, Republicans always come to me and say, "Oh, this is such a rock blue state. Are you kidding? We could never win. We could win statewide. We can absolutely win the sustainable majorities. We are choosing not to. Republicans. It's not the state. It's not us.
Yeah.
It's not the state. It's us."
I also constantly remind Democrats too that we could very much lose the majority and all of our things. And I'll be honest, I am shocked that it is tied because not coming out of a trifecta.
Sorry, Shannon Watson is giving us her new door code.
I hope she doesn't have a lawnmower.
We have to talk about scoms. We must be better about our scomming. To come out of a trifecta where a significant amount of money was invested across jurisdictions in the state, and to only come out with a tie and not to lose the majority significantly, like.
Yeah, I mean, look, it was not for Minnesota. It was not a runaway victory for Republicans.
No,
they could have picked up many more seats. Probably should have in a off year. I do want to call out Shannon Watson because I was on a panel for Minneapolis Chamber Empowering Women with Shannon Watson, who does Majority in the Middle, and I outlined what could happen. And as always, as I've been talking about for months, is that, listen, there is a very real possibility for the nightmare situation of having 67-67, an equally tied House. And she goes, am I the only one that's excited for a possibility of 67-67 because they're going to have to work together? And I was like, I think you might.
Yes, Shannon.
Yes, Shannon.
Well,
I will say she was excited for the possibility of 67.
The political scientist in me really wants to see how this experiment goes.
Yeah.
Well, you take notes and you can write a follow-up
I don't take
to
notes.
the Minnesota Standoff Part 2.
Ooh, electric boogaloo.
Yeah.
All right, let's go to plugs. Who has something to plug? We booked about 10 minutes here for Amy to talk about all the things that she's on.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll just go. So thanks for Channel 4, WCCO. They had Abu and I on all night for election coverage. Appreciate NPR. Today I did a 6:20 and noon with Kathy Werzer. WCCO this morning with Vanita Sakar. So grateful. Shout out to Sam from USA Today. Talking a little bit about the implications for Walz coming back to Minnesota. We'll be on TRT World News.
Have you never been? Keep going.
All right, I know. Just forget about it.
She's out there making our firm money.
Weren't you on Al Jazeera too?
Yes.
Amy
Okay.
Jazeera.
But who cares? Who cares?
People care. I just don't.
Okay.
But don't you have an
Inside story on Al Jazeera this week?
I hate you.
Al Jazeera English. Shout out to Bobby Benson with the Emmer campaign and also City Council of Lexington, Minnesota, because he was actually watching Al Jazeera English at home and caught my inside story segment. Yeah, I'll just there. That's good.
That's
I honestly
enough.
can't.
Is that the
remember.
time for plugs?
That's enough.
All right.
You guys have anything you want to plug?
No, I'm a normal person.
Yes.
Well, you can also
We're
catch
unbelievable.
Amy on the Bob Sansevier show. They let me be on there too as her +1, I guess. We're on every Tuesday, bsblog.com. I will be on Almanac this Friday, and that's going to be fun. I'm going to be on Almanac on TPT at 7 p.m. This Friday. And then also the podcast is going to be, speaking of Shannon Watson, the Majority in the Middle is having their post-election Purple Party, which will be on the 16th of November, and that we will be on, along with CCO's Jason DeRusha. And please go to www.majoritymiddle.com/events for tickets.
Pinstripes in Edina, where I have never been.
Oh, it's nice.
Really?
That's what I
nice.
heard. It's
But don't you
very
live
nice.
in Edina now, you fancy?
I do.
Cake
And also, I used to own a bowling alley, so you'd think that I would have run right over there.
Gone there for.
I've been to a bowling alley. I've never owned one, though.
Talk about relatable.
Wow.
That is super relatable.
No, it's not.
Have you been to the Maple Lake Bowl?
She had gold toilets, but they weren't really gold. They just hadn't been,
Just
Had a
painted
big
on
clean
the
spray
painted.
hadn't been cleaned in a while.
There.
No.
Pinstripes is an excellent
It is.
venue.
That's
Yeah,
what
it
I've
is
heard.
lovely.
All right.
I've
Well,
heard it's next level when it comes to bowling alley.
that's great. Let's do Spanks and Things. Who would like to go first? Not Amy.
I can go first. My spank this week is for these voting report cards. Look, when I got my first voting report card after I had moved back to Minnesota from living in New York for a few years, I was like, well, that's creepy, because it was like, you have not voted in these specific elections in Minnesota. I voted in New York City. But now, this last cycle, there was voting report cards of people's neighbors to try to encourage them to go talk to their neighbors about their voting
Who's
track
doing
record.
that? Is this a get out the vote by the Democrats?
It's
That might be why you lost. That's horrible.
Look, here's some feedback.
Okay, I'm sorry.
I always think that I put lawn signs out so I can tell I'm just telling my neighbors who they don't want to vote for.
There's two groups. I mean, I think it has shown that it has. Thanks, Gabe. They are creepy. They are invasive. It feels very patronizing and scolding, which is not compelling for anybody when it comes to encouraging people to vote or how to explain critical issues to people's lives. They're sick of being lectured and patronized, and this, telling your neighbors when you voted, is just, it's too far. My thank is for the field staff and organizers of the Democratic Coordinated Campaign and campaign staff on across the state. Campaigns are grueling, and you don't make a lot of money. Well, we make a little more now than back in the day, but
Which was free, which was zero.
which was
for
zero,
my
which was
volunteer.
zero monies.
Yep.
But they worked incredibly hard. The ground game was very real, so it's even more disappointing, the loss, when you invest that much. I did go to a couple election night parties last night, and one was for Senator Morrison, who now Congresswoman to be Morrison, Senator Ann Johnson Stewart. It was fun. It was exciting. It was in the district. It was not really Capitol people. It was community members, and it was fun. I then went to the Intercontinental for the DFL party, and I got there a little late, so the results were known, and the vibe was not the same, and it was a lot of deflated, very, very young people who did not experience 2016 as adults, who worked so hard over the past few months, and it was really disappointing. So thanks to them.
All right.
All right. Well, I don't have the emotional energy to be angry enough to spank this week, so we're going to do two thanks. First, to all the election judges and staff that were out making sure that our election went smoothly yesterday, and an extra shout out to, I vote in a church basement, so the little old ladies the church basement ladies that had cookies at the end, because that was
they're
nostalgic
church
and
basement
very sweet.
ladies.
Church basement ladies. We had our cookies when you were done voting, but you had to get your voting done first. And then, just as a personal thank, I have a friend who is struggling with this election outcome and what this means for the future. And she's been commenting and listening. So thank you for the people that engage in politics when it's hard and fight the fights when they are difficult on the gray days. It's because of you that we're able to do this, and that it is what makes democracy keep moving forward.
And she has great hair.
She has great hair.
Great hair.
So I'm also doing just thanks. So thanks to everybody at the table. Thank you to the team of folks that I work with. It's been a very busy week and pretty wild. And if I've been grumpy, I'm sorry, but now I'm going to be grumpy because you're making faces at me.
I'm smiling.
No, I want to just say thank you. This was it was a really crazy couple, really a year, but this last couple weeks. So thank you. And also I want to say thank you to Peter Callahan, reporter with MinPost. He posted last night late, and it might have got missed by a lot of you nerds out there, but I'm gonna highlight it because it's very important. Something I learned. He posted this last night. I guess not that late, 8:26 p.m. So right as people were starting to get the Minnesota Secretary of State updates results only every 10 minutes. So there is, no matter how many times you hit refresh, which I know you're all doing out there, no matter how many times you hit the refresh, that doesn't change. And this year, it is on the 08, the 18, and the 28 sequence. So you didn't have to keep pushing refresh. They only update
Now they
every
tell
10
us.
minutes, and they update on a specific
I
sequence.
was like, Peter, that would have been really helpful information on Tuesday.
Well,
know?
no, he did.
I mean,
but right, but we all
Yeah,
missed
sorry.
it because we were
Yesterday was
so
Tuesday.
busy hitting refresh and looking at the Secretary of State's face. Like, we missed it. Why? You could have given us to us yesterday morning.
That's what I
Yes.
mean.
Yeah,
Yesterday morning, Monday. I forgot today.
But also
is
good
Wednesday.
intel.
But nonetheless, so then he goes, even shows on the computer where you can see where it says last updated, and you can get the cadence, you can get the sequence, so you can just refresh it when it updates, and
tip.
you know it's on the 8s. So brilliant,
That'll
and
be
Peter
magic for
Callahan,
next
thanks.
year.
But maybe now we're ahead for 2026.
Yeah, now we know, and knowing's half the battle.
Yep, stop hitting refresh,
we remember.
everybody.
Yeah.
We'll
So
remember.
please post again.
Post again. Okay, well, I am going to spank, but I'm going to spank pollster J. Ann Seltzer, who is a renowned pollster. I believe that she was referred to as the gold standard.
Gold standard.
Yeah, we don't like Adam Silver anymore, even though he's a wizard over
Nate.
at 5. Nate Silver, what did I say?
Adam.
Oh, that's I think Adam Silver is like the
NBA
the
commissioner?
NBA's commissioner.
You always have to say.
Anyway, okay. Nate Silver, 538. He's a wizard, and I think he has had scathing. Nate Silver had scathing things to say about how he thought that pollsters were manipulating the results that we were seeing because they were afraid of being wrong. So all these polls were within like 1 point of each other, and it's because they were doing it so that they weren't wrong,
And also hurting the votes.
and hurting the votes, which is I'm gonna get to that in a second. I'm so freaking angry about this. But pollster J. Ann Seltzer said that she's going to be reviewing her data to determine why a Des Moines Register Mediacom Iowa poll released just days before the election produced results that were off by 17 points. They had Kamala Harris winning Iowa by 3 points. And I am not going to lie. I'm the dope that looked at that and said, oh my gosh, that's indicative of something huge. Maybe she wasn't going to win, but if she makes Iowa close, then Trump has to be in trouble in Wisconsin and Michigan and Pennsylvania and North Carolina and Georgia. So 100%, these things manipulate our thoughts. And if they are as inaccurate as they are, then they are doing a disservice. And as I was watching CBS because Amy was on WCCO
Thank you.
with a boo. So I was forcing myself to watch Nora O'Donnell and these other insufferable doorknobs.
Well, I'm not with them.
No, you weren't with them, but just weep at the thought of their candidate not winning. And I'm watching them as they're going through the North Carolina poll results. They're going through Georgia, and they are telling us, well, we think Kamala's going to win because look at all these votes that are going to be coming in Atlanta and in Mecklenburg County, and then up in Philadelphia. And they were creating a narrative. Same thing they were doing on the other side with Trump, pointing to Virginia, saying, look, Trump is doing so much better in Virginia. Virginia's in play, everybody. All of it was bullshit. And if you're watching the numbers, you could see it was bullshit. And I don't appreciate being manipulated by the media. And this is why people don't trust the media the way they once did. So they are spanked. My thank is in a weird way going to be to Ted Cruz, the Zodiac Killer or whatever people call him. Ted Cruz beat Colin Allred for Senate.
The most punchable face in the
He's
Senate.
got a very punchable face. But anyway, once again, people were suckered into giving money to candidates like Beto O'Rourke and Colin Allred, hundreds of millions of dollars because Texas is going to turn and we're going to be able to beat, the punchable face of Ted Cruz. And once again, it didn't work. And in fact, Ted Cruz won handily this time. But what my thank is it was determined that in 2018, Ted Cruz lost Latino voters by 29 points. Oof. In 2024, Ted Cruz won Latino voters by 6 points, which is what, a 35-point swing. And why that's not, I'm not thanking Ted Cruz for doing that, or frankly doing much of anything, but I do love it when groups are not allowing themselves to be manipulated and being told that, well, you're not black if you don't vote for Joe Biden, and if Latinos, can you believe that comedian said those things about those Latinos from a completely different part of the world than you're from? Well, then you're not a good Latino. People need to hold the parties accountable, because once you are, as a woman or as a person of color or any group, once you are counted on for your vote, no matter what, they stop listening to you. The only way they're going to listen to you is if you start either not voting or voting a different way. And I'm going to thank everybody for having a mind of their own.
Wow, for being tired, that was.
I'm all fired up.
I'm now exhausted.
I know.
And with that, I am GOP strategist and not having my... Oh, you know what? I didn't talk about my Emmy Award even once. Brian McDaniel.
And I am former Republican Senate Majority Leader, and warning you about that refresh button, Amy Koch.
I'm health advocate Rochelle Westland.
And I am lobbyist Allison Nessie, still going to go measure my head circumference for my bonnet later.
And we are Ron About Everything. Thanks for being on the show, ladies.
Oh, thank you.
What else would I want to do today?
Appreciate it.